Lesson 3 in Module 1 will cover essential training methods, which provide you with clear structure to nail the fundamentals. Progress with your strength comes when you can do exercises effectively, use good range of motion, and you do them consistently. Training methods are what we use to make each exercise effective. Let's run it. Lesson 3, here we go. So, little refresher, what are the training fundamentals we need to apply each workout in order to make each workout effective? Well, those are going to be using challenging weight, training close to failure with that challenging weight, and making sure we are measuring, tracking, and progressing each exercise, making sure we're doing either one more rep or a little bit more weight, or at the very least, just using better technique throughout our workouts. If we can follow those fundamentals, we are effectively using progressive overload. When you get stronger, you will build muscle. Again, muscle is a byproduct of strength. Now, in our workout routines, how we use these fundamentals are actually through using training methods. Training methods are what we use to make each exercise effective. And if there were to be 3 that if these were all you knew for the rest of your life, I would feel confident that you could still make progress for life if these were all you knew. Those being reverse pyramid training, straight sets, and rest pause training. Now, a little bit of a refresher. Again, when I say make each exercise effective, that goes back to the idea that our body doesn't know what a dumbbell is. Our body doesn't know what a barbell is. It doesn't know what all these forms of resistance are. It only knows, is this challenging or is this not challenging? Training methods help us get to that point in which we can make each form of resistance challenging and effective. As a personal trainer, training methods help us change one of the 5 R's. We were taught that there is going to be resistance, which again, is that going to be challenging or is it going to be not challenging? A light or a heavy weight could mean they are both challenging, but one is going to be lighter in relation to the other. So if I were to do dumbbell curls, a light weight for me to use for 15 reps would be 20 pounds. That would still be challenging, and that would be a proper way to do a bicep curl when I'm using higher reps. If I'm doing lower reps, a heavy weight, quote unquote, would be 45 pounds. They are both challenging, but they are just slightly different weights. The second R is going to be repetitions, or the rep range. We can change this to make it a little bit more effective with a lighter or a heavier weight. And when you get into the workout programs that I provide, at the very least, I think it is a good rule of thumb that you'll have a rep range for each exercise. And the way of progressing that is you want to max out that rep range with whatever weight you're currently using. So don't increase the weight until you can hit the end of that rep range. I'll have more details in each workout plan specified as well. A little preview for what that would look like is that if week 1, the rep range is 6 to 8 reps, that is the rep range. I'll use 35 pounds for 6 reps. Week 2, 35 pounds for 7 reps. Week 3, didn't quite progress again to another rep, but I got 35 for 7. Week 4, I progressed again. I got 35 pounds for 8 reps. Now that I hit the end of that rep range, the end of that 6 to 8 rep range, I can now increase the weight. And that is the idea of progressive overload. Lastly, the 3 other R's are going to be range of motion, rest, and recovery. Recovery is a component that will be more dependent on your sleep and your nutrition, but sometimes training 6 days a week is just too much to recover from, which is another reason why I am a big advocate of 3-day per week workout routines. So with the 5 R's, resistance, repetitions, range of motion, rest, and recovery, how do the training methods change them to make each exercise we do more effective? For reverse pyramid training, we're going to change the weight and the rep range for each set, so that way we can always prioritize intensity. More to come on that next. For straight sets, we will keep the weight and the reps the same in order to prioritize that range of motion, to really focus on having great form and technique and skill, and to ensure we are using our muscles effectively. And lastly, rest pause training method as a third method I think is one of your essentials to know. It changes the rest and the rep ranges to also keep intensity high. So in your workouts, what will reverse pyramid training look like? You will see each of these techniques outlined more and how you're using them for the specific exercises in each workout program, but you won't fully understand these until you actually do them as well. So you may know them and you may know what they mean based off of this instructional video, but you won't fully understand them until you do them. So give them your best shot. Reverse pyramid training, we want to keep intensity high and we want to keep it the same for each set. as you naturally fatigue after you do a really heavy set, you won't be able to give that same intensity with that same weight and with that same rep. So reverse pyramid training helps us decrease the weight, but still keep intensity high by now doing a little bit more reps with that lower weight. So after each set, the reps will go up and the weight will go down. So that way your intensity and the resistance can still stay really high and challenging. We'll use reverse pyramid training when we are trying to get as strong as possible. It will help get you comfortable and confident pushing through a form of discomfort. And also it helps you get your heaviest set first. It's when you feel your freshest and you can really give it your all. When you decrease the weight a little bit, you can still find a way to give it your all and push through that discomfort and really fight to get strong in these big exercises that we'll use reverse pyramid training with. For an example of what reverse pyramid training will look like week after week, say, for instance, we are going to start off with our first training set of 5 to 6 reps. Say, if I'm using 235 pounds for that first training set and I got 5 reps, I will decrease the weight and then I will increase the reps. And so I got 205 pounds, but now for 7 reps. And then for my third training set on that exercise, I drop the weight again, but I will go for just a little bit more reps. That was week 1 with that exercise. Week 2, since the rep ranges are 5 to 6 reps, 7 to 8 reps, and 8 to 10 reps, I still need to use those same weights before I can actually progress to increase them until I can max out the rep ranges. So week 2, I will use 230 pounds again, and I will aim for 6 reps, and I got it. For that second set, I'll use 205 pounds again, and I'll aim for 8 reps, and I got it. And then for that third set, I'll drop the weight again, but then I went for 10 reps, and I got it as well. So now that I maxed out the rep range, I can now increase the weight for week 3. And so I increased the weight just 5 pounds for each set. I got 235 pounds for 5 reps, dropped the weight a little bit for the second set, increased the reps, 210 pounds for 7 reps, dropped the weight a little bit more and increased the reps again, and I got 190 pounds for 8 reps. And so for week 4, if you're thinking ahead, I wouldn't increase the weight because I still need to max out the rep ranges again. Since training with such challenging weight for each set is a very taxing form of exercise, make sure you rest anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes or a little bit more if you need it on that day. And I also really recommend you get in 2 to 3 warm-up sets before you do your training sets. And so for example, if I use 200 pounds for my training set, just because the math is easy to do with that, my first warm-up set of 25% of that will be 50 pounds, or the bar plus 2.5 pounds on each side. That's 50 pounds. My second warm-up set will be 50% of my first training set. So I'll use 100 pounds because my first training weight is going to be 200. And then lastly, 75%, I'll use 150 pounds for that last warm-up set before I get to my training set of 200 pounds. Next up is the straight sets training method. And for this one, I like to imagine you're building a wall, which is why I tried to use this icon right here. You're going to keep the reps the same, and you're going to keep the weight the same, but you want to prioritize on making sure your range of motion and your technique are still perfect. And perfect is kind of relative, but you want to make sure you are always using and thinking about how you could improve it each week in each set and each rep. And I like to use a wall as an analogy here because how good this entire wall is depends on how each brick is laid. And so although it may be easy to see these as all the same, always give each set of an exercise the attention it needs so that we can still get great results and make sure each set and each rep is effective. Everyone needs a good reminder to improve our technique from time to time. So do not neglect these, even though it may feel like it is somewhat of a less fancy or less engaging form of exercise. Your brick wall is only as good as how you lay each brick. So make sure each brick, each set is done well. Do note, I also use straight sets whenever we're doing a skill-based or athletic-based movement, so that way we can really prioritize the athletic technique of the exercise. So for an example of what straight sets looks like with an exercise, week 1, I'm using 150 pounds and the rep range is 6 to 8 reps. So after I did my warm-up sets, my first training set is 150 pounds. I got 6 reps, and then for the second and third set, trying to keep the weight the same, and I'm trying to still stay in that rep range. But I only got 150 pounds for 5 reps and then 150 pounds for 5 reps again. And so notice I was below the rep range for that first week. And so this happens at times. But when this happens, you want to prioritize staying in the rep range. So for week 2, I decreased the weight. So that way I could go back into that rep range. And for that first set in week 2, I got 145 pounds for 8 reps. And then for sets 2 and 3, I got 145 pounds for 7 reps. And so I didn't max out the rep range yet, but I'm still in the rep range with that weight. And so for week 3, stuck with 145 pounds for my training sets, and I maximized the rep range with all of those sets. And if you're following along, week 4, I would increase the weight again and try and still stick to that 6 to 8 rep range. So I'd try and do 150 pounds for 6 reps at least for each 3 sets of my training sets. And essential training method number 3, rest pause training. Now for this one, you are going to focus on keeping the weight the same, but the reps are going to be somewhat the same, with having the first set being a little bit different than your last 3 mini sets. For rest pause training, you're going to do 1 activation set. This one's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 reps for kind of an activation. It's a higher rep range one. And then your last mini sets are going to be 3 sets of around 5 to 8 reps, depending on which workout program you're doing. The idea of that is, as if you look on this graph right here, say you're using a weight that is challenging once it gets to around 10 to 15 reps. Well, if you're doing anywhere from like 4 to 6 reps, you really haven't gotten to that point in which you're hitting failure yet. And so in this 4 to 6 rep range, it's not super challenging, but once you get up to 10 to 15 reps, so that first activation set, it's challenging. But the beauty of rest pause training is that you decrease the rest after your activation set and in between each mini set afterwards. So for you do your first activation set of 10 to 15 reps and you get you close to failure, but then by only resting 10 to 15 seconds, you kind of recover enough to get back down to right around this sweet spot. So then when you do your next mini set, you only do about 5 to 6 reps, and that gets you back to failure again with that quote unquote lighter weight. Rest 10 to 15 seconds again and do your second mini set. Rest 10 to 15 seconds again and you do your third mini set. This rest pause training method helps you stick to the sweet spot and somewhat above it, close to failure, with a lighter weight. So that way you aren't risking any form of injury, but you're still using a lighter weight in a very challenging way because you're limiting how much you rest. We'll use rest pause training typically at the end of the workout programs that I provide, and it's a great way to really make sure you're getting in at least 1 exercise close to failure. Because you're only resting a little bit in between, there's almost no reason for you not to get close to failure. So what does this look like with progression? So for the first week, you have your activation set, and I used 15 pounds and I got 14 reps. The rep range was 12 to 15, so I still need to note that I haven't gotten 15 reps at the end of that rep range. But after my activation set, I'm only resting 10 to 15 seconds. And then for my first mini set, I got 15 pounds. We're keeping the weight the same, and I got 7 reps. Again, the rep range is 6 to 8 reps for this exercise right now. And so I will need to keep with this weight until I can max out the rep range. So note for that for weeks 2 and 3. For the second and third mini set, I got 15 pounds for 7 reps and then 15 pounds for 6 reps. Again, you do your first activation set, rest only 10 to 15 seconds, do your first mini set, rest only 10 to 15 seconds, second mini set, rest 10 to 15 seconds, and you do your third mini set. For week 2, I stuck with the same weight and I tried to get just a few more reps. Well, if you notice, I only got 1 more rep on that first activation set, so I still need to stick with 15 pounds. And then for week 3, I was able to max out all of the rep ranges for that weight at 15 pounds. So now I can finally increase the weight and try and hit the bottom end of that rep range for week 4. If you also pay attention here in this little note right here, with less rest in between each little mini set, it is very mentally difficult as well as being physically taxing. So this is a great way to use exercises to push your mental limits, as well as also inducing a great stimulus to getting close to failure while training with your exercises. So now that we have covered the training fundamentals and the training methods, the key takeaways of when you're getting into a workout. Number 1 being you need to get stronger following a structure in order to build muscle over time. Muscle is a byproduct of strength, so we must get stronger. But in order to do that, we need to train hard and we need to train smart. Track your workouts and make sure you're using a challenging weight and have a sense of direction with your effort. That being said, your effort is more important than the amount of work you are doing. If you don't give your best effort, even the most scientifically perfect exercise, the most scientifically perfect workout will not be as effective. And when you think about giving your best effort, if you can't give your best effort 6 days out of a week for at least a month straight, how could you do that for a year in order to get that good progress for life? So think about what is a routine you could do for life when you are giving your best effort in every workout. And lastly, part of finding out how to do a routine for life is figuring out how to make the gym fun. And the gym is the fun part of your transformation. Smashing PRs, you get to see your progress, you look a little bit different week after week in the gym. It's a really fun, rewarding experience, but you can't wait for it to feel like fun in order to begin. The hardest part of working out is showing up to the gym in the first place, but realizing that fun isn't what gets you started. Waiting for it to feel like fun is not what gets you to show up. Fun is what happens after you show up. Fun is what happens after you start making progress and feel like your effort is being rewarded. Setting PRs is fun. Feeling like you have a sense of body mastery is fun. Accomplishing something hard is fun. Remember that transformation comes when you can push through what hard feels like, and sometimes the hardest part is simply showing up. But now that you know what the training fundamentals are for each workout and what the training methods are we'll use for each exercise, hopefully showing up is no longer the hard part. The hard part is sticking to this for life and always making progress, which I will cover in the next lesson.